Network. Your city, your podcast.
To the delight of this crowd, McClendon marches down the dugout steps with first base.
McCutcheon's throw. The runner breaks to the plate. Here's the throw. Wow. He is out. The Buccos win.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Starbucs. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me, we have our co-host, Jim Rosati. Jim, welcome to Starbucs. We're back.
I know. I think it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since we've done Starbucks. It's been a while.
I honestly can't remember. It hasn't been that long, right? Maybe it has. I don't know.
Well, I think last week we were going to do it, but then I was too tired. So
it was something like that. But then we did NSN Live. And
Right.
Did we not do it the week before, though, I feel?
I don't remember.
Maybe not.
Maybe we didn't. Yeah.
I know the show's been kind of sporadic here. The news has been very sporadic, though, as well. So,
yeah, not a lot happening, but
think about it. It's hard enough to have like 2 shows a week for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Anyway, so to have 2 shows a week after the season, before anything major happens in, free agency and stuff like that, come on. But yes, let's say we have a lot of news today to talk about.
Yeah, we've got a lot. There was an actual major league free agent signing, which I'm shocked that there was one, let alone one. And not only was it this early, but free agent signing. We have a new hitting coach. Baseball America released their top 10, so we've got some stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, we do. And I guess I'll just get into it. There's no need. No one cares what we've been doing for the past 3 weeks. It's cold. No, that's all. Thanksgiving's tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And that's all.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So I guess let's start with the free agency. Let's start with that. As you mentioned, the Pirates signed an actual free agent. This isn't a minor league deal. You're invited to spring training. This is an actual free agent. Not a whole lot of money. But let's say this. This is a guy that the Pirates are supposed to have 4 years ago. They're supposed to trade Josh Bell, Tyler Glasnow, Mitch Keller, like the entire farm to get him. And they're just too cheap. They're too dumb to get him. And now they finally did. Jose Quintana is a Pittsburgh Pirate for $2 million.
Right. Yeah, they acquire Jose Quintana. Unfortunately, it's like 4 years after people were clamoring, I think it was 2017 is when people were like,
that sounds
we
about
need
right.
to get this guy. It was probably 2015 too, but I think 2017 was the year, and then the Cubs got him instead. So Quintana signed 1 year, $2 million. Just to kind of give you, everybody's aware of who this guy is. He's been in the majors since 2012. He was really solid with the White Sox, right?
Yes.
One of just a steady top of the rotation type of guy, like a solid number 2 starter, basically, for, better part of 5 years or so. Goes to the Cubs. So we saw him a little bit with the Cubs in the division. And, he wasn't as good with the Cubs as he was with the White Sox, but he was still useful, right? He was still, pretty useful, at least for the first 2 years there with the Cubs. In 2020, the shortened season, he didn't pitch a lot. He only threw 10 innings in 2020. And then last year we saw him. He played on 2 teams. So he started off with the Angels, and the Angels kind of used him. He started 10 games, but he also threw 14 games out of the bullpen last year with the Angels. And that was really his first time throwing out of the bullpen in his career. And then, the Giants also acquired him, and he threw 5 games, out of the bullpen for the Giants. But Yeah, so he didn't really pitch a ton of innings last year or the year before. He was used mostly out of the bullpen. And a few things kind of happened, like if you're looking at like his numbers, right? His strikeouts went up, right? Pitching out of the bullpens, his strikeout numbers went way up. His walk numbers also though went way up, and he gave up a lot of home runs. So like it was a weird year. I would imagine the Pirates are planning on using him in the starting rotation. I don't think the Pirates give a $2 million deal to somebody that they think they're going to put in the bullpen. So my assumption here is he's going back into the starting rotation. And honestly, I was, when it first happened, I was a little. We'll talk about kind of my thoughts on it, but he's useful. He's useful.
That's a polite way of
yeah. So
stating your
that's
feelings.
kind of. I'll go into more detail here later on, but that's pretty much the gist on Quintana. He's I say he's just been using the bullpen lately the past 2 years, but I think he can still start, and I think that's the Pirates' plan with him.
All good details. I agree pretty much with everything that you said. I think he'll be used as a starter. That's why he's here. Pirates going to probably need starting rotation depth, at least at the very, very beginning. And this could definitely be something where he transitions into the bullpen. But I think by all means, he's given the keys to the starting rotation job in spring training. But to speak about Jose Quintana, and this might be, this is definitely probably before your time. Not even sure you're aware, but he was one of my dudes. Like Jose Quintana has been one of my dudes. Always. I've loved Jose Quintana. Thought he was a very, very underrated player. Even though he's the guy that no one really knew about. It was Chris Sale, but it's like, hey, there's Jose Quintana back there. He's a really good pitcher, and he was, like you said, he was very steady. He's your number 2 guy. I loved him. I would have loved Jose Quintana to be on the Pirates, But his career hasn't really projected to be as, maybe not projected, trajected. Hasn't trajected in the way I expected. I don't think a lot of people did. Like you said, when you got to the Cubs, it wasn't who they traded Eloy Jimenez for. It's not the guy they expected to get in return. His numbers really declined, although like you said, he was still useful. It wasn't like he just was terrible by any means. I mean, he was very useful for the Cubs at that time. Last year was just a miserable, terrible year for him all around. Like you said, though, it's weird. Like his strikeouts did really increase, but so did everything else. When you look at his underlying numbers, that they're very poor. If you're just going on the Baseball Savant page, like just the eye test, looking at that, it's a lot of blue, except for the K rate. It's kind of weird, but
yeah,
he's at the end of his career. I'm not expecting, I don't look at the signing as of, oh my God, we got Jose Quintana. Like it's finally, we did it. The Pirates got Jose Quintana. I look at it as, well, it's kind of late, but I don't hate it. I don't hate the deal. I mean, where the Pirates are at, they're kind of in no man's land right now. They're not going to be good. We want them to project to be better. We think this is a year that they can improve upon. Hell, it's a free agent signing, like you said. It's not too terrible. Like they could have done a lot worse, right? They could have got, I don't know what to put out there, but they could have done worse, but they absolutely could have done better too.
Right. Yeah.
I think some people are comparing this like, well, it's in between a Cahill and Tyler Anderson signing. And I think that's probably fair to say. Both of those came with risks, and Jose Quintana definitely comes with his fair share of risks. I don't think there's a whole lot of upside to him, but he could be Tyler Anderson. I don't think, and I don't expect him to be as productive as Tyler Anderson was this past year, but it could be that crafty veteran that just, stabilizes and gives you innings this year and you call it a day.
Yeah. And you know what just absolutely shocked me is that he and Tyler Anderson are the same age.
So I saw you say that actually. Why did that shock you?
I think it's just because I feel like Quintana's been around forever.
Okay.
Like I was expecting Like before I went and looked at any of his numbers or went to any of his pages, I was like, we just signed this like 36-year-old dude.
Gotcha.
You know, he's 32, right? It shocked me. I was very surprised. Quintana, Tyler Anderson, both born in the same year. You couldn't have, I would not have ever thought that. And like when I first heard of it, I was real negative on the deal. Just because I was, upset that I'm still upset about the Wade Miley situation. So I don't know if I can get over that just quite yet. But if you're signing Quintana, and you're letting people like Wade Miley pass over, it's just like, we're obviously not going to try much next year, which just makes me upset. But that'll be a different podcast for a different day. But looking again at Quintana, I do think he can, be useful. I think there is a good shot, honestly, that he could become the next Tyler Anderson, kind of looking at it now. Really, you're just looking for somebody who can throw innings consistently and not be awful. And he has shown in the past that those are things that he can do, right? He hasn't shown it the last year, but we can also chalk it up to, hey, it was his first time throwing out of the bullpen. Maybe he was doing stuff different. I don't know what to say there. Like you mentioned, his StatCast page is not pretty. Doesn't look good. But if you look at, say, 2019, it also still didn't look good. But also, it never has. Like, looking back, he's always had a lot of glue. I feel like he's always kind of been a guy where, like, his stuff was never all that great. He just kind of figured a way to. He's a good pitcher.
Yes.
Like, he's just he knows how to pitch. So there's no reason why I don't believe that, if Jose Quintana is a starting pitcher for an entire season, like, the guy can put up a 2 WAR season and be an average major league starter, like an average number 4 starter on a good team. Like, I think that he could do that.
Okay.
Still at this age.
So
there's I think looking back on all that, I like this signing. $2 million deal. He can go into the rotation. He can be at least useful, and if he's good, you can use him for something.
A couple things I want to touch on that you said in there. You did take a lot of heat. For some reason, you took a lot of heat about the Jose Quintana versus Wade Miley. Just in that sense. I mean, because we did discuss that. We discussed that on, it was your last show or the show before, where like the Pirates could have just got him. Literally just could have said, Wade Miley, you're mine. And that's it. Right?
Yeah.
No one claimed him. They went free agent, Cubs pick him up. And you said that, like, this kind of pisses me off. Like, they could have had Wade Miley and, here's Jose Quintana, and everyone's like, you're an idiot. Wade Miley's terrible. Jose Quintana's an ace. I mean, of course, I didn't go that far, but it's like, I'm kind of with you. I think I would much rather have Wade Miley. I'm not looking and stating that he's going to be a 5 WAR pitcher. I'm not saying that I firmly believe that that's the guy he was last year and such, but I do believe he's got a little more bullets in the tank, and he's probably a better pitcher than Jose Quintana. And you could have just had him. It could have just been yours and Jose Quintana if you wanted. So
yeah, you could have both. Why not both?
So I don't know if I understand all the hate that you got for that. But it is what it is. It's Twitter. Gotta love it. Also, with that said, about Jose Quintana, I guess looking back, like, at the Tyler Anderson situation, like, when we looked back at Tyler Anderson, right, signing him, I think the big thing with him was, like, he's always been like a decent pitcher, right? Much like Quintana, he's kind of crafty. I mean, he's not too I don't know, sexy in regards of like, his stuff or whatever. But I think the thing was him was like, well, he's going to get out of Colorado. Like stuff's going to play better. He's getting out of Colorado. He hasn't pitched as long. So I guess there's that little bit of like, he's newer where Jose Quintana has like a, I don't know, a lot of innings on the arm, if you can say. Like, I guess that's where you're going, like the age wise. Yeah. I mean, he started much younger. But I think with like Tyler Anderson, I think you felt like he was still the same guy. Like he doesn't diminish. He's just been in Colorado for the most part, and he just is what he is. With Jose Quintana, I think there's this clear track of he's diminished. And I think that's right, and that's why I feel I would be more hopeful, like with Tyler Anderson, than Jose Quintana. Mm-hmm. Could he be a 2-WAR player? I mean, I guess he could. If Wade Miley could be a 5-WAR player, I guess Jose Quintana could be a 2-WAR player. But I also feel I would have more faith in Tyler Anderson to do that than Jose Quintana, just because Jose Quintana is clearly trajecting worse. If that makes sense.
No, I mean, Jose Quintana by no means is anywhere near the pitcher he was when he was with the White Sox, right? And that's the Jose Quintana that most people think of
remember
when they hear his name, right? Mm-hmm. That's who they remember, because he hasn't been relevant since then, right? So you don't remember Jose Quintana from the last 4 years, because why would you? He wasn't that good.
Which also was good. As much as I liked him, now he was a Cub. So, and that deal didn't work out in the Cubs' favor. So it was good. Yeah.
And I mean, he was like I said, 2019 was a fine season. He put up respectable numbers. A lot of his WAR that year was probably innings driven, but he has not been the guy that we remember since 2017. Like it's been a while now. But again, he's a starting pitcher. He'll be 33 next year. I think he's at least shown that he's, durable. I mean,
yes.
Between 2012 and 2019, he pitched 170 plus innings basically every year, right? Last year, again, he was out of the bullpen, so we didn't really get to see that longevity out of him, but you put him back on the starting rotation, and you got a guy who should theoretically be able to give you 150 innings, right? At least.
Absolutely.
And that's really what this team needs, because the bullpen's so bad. They need starting pitchers to pitch into the 6th and 7th innings. That's just something they haven't been able to do, other than Tyler Anderson, right? So I think he'll be okay. Like, is this a signing that you get excited about? I'm not excited about this signing, but like it's fine. This is something I guess that this is something that they need to bring in some starting pitching anyways, because this rotation is just a mess. Like I don't know if I remember a year, actually, DiNardo, where going into a season I have just zero optimism about a starting rotation. Like, there's always like one or two guys where you're like, maybe this is the year, maybe this is the year, but it's like this pitching staff is just terrible. And I don't think any of them are good. You could say maybe Mitch Keller. We've been saying maybe Mitch Keller for 3 years now. So they need a lot of help. So Quintana's at least a guy that you can put in there so that it's like one less really crappy guy that you have to start, I guess.
No, it's funny you say that. So like you had more optimism last year than this year is really what you're saying.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Rosie Contreras coming.
Okay, so I'm talking about like the guys who are going to be in the opening day rotation.
Day one
opening day rotation. Like, there's nothing to be excited about. Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't fault you there, because just like you said, if there is anyone, it's Mitch Keller, and we're kind of over that, right? It's
like, oh man, can't wait to see a full season out of Dylan Peters, Like,
Well, I was going to say is even Baseball America. So we're going to talk about the new top 10 that Baseball America released, and of course how they always do like the projected 2025 season, what the lineup or rotation will be, and they even had Mitch Keller as number 5 starter in 2025. So that tells you where Baseball America thought of Mitch Keller as well. He's the number 5, the future ace. He's a 1. He's a 2. Well, Baseball America now says, hey, he's a 5. Yeah, he's not good. So yeah. I can definitely get on board where you're coming from as far as optimism.
Well, because like last year you were like, it was like, okay, well, we've got Brubaker coming off it. Like, I mean, there were some people
Chad
that like,
Cool's gonna finally do it. I'm gonna prove you all. I mean, I was optimistic about that.
There were some reasons for a little bit of optimism last year, but like, I have zero optimism about any of these starting pitchers going into next year. Just none. They have all crushed my soul.
I'm so sorry, Jim. I'm so sorry. Well, yeah, Jose Quintana is just going to add to that. I'm with you. He's not going to be something to be optimistic about. He's going to be the innings eater. He's going to be a guy there. And if he has a fine season, he has a fine season. And if he can get a Tyler Anderson trade market going again, then cool. But also, it's not as if so far we feel that Ben Cherington really capitalized on Tyler Anderson's trade value anyways. So not sure what you're going to get out of Jose Quintana this year if that's what happens, but that's also another podcast that we can get into. But yeah, so Jose Quintana is signed. He is a Pirate. All those memes from 2017 you can break out. They're actually true. It's legit. He's a Pirate. And it is kind of is what it is right now. It's the first signing though as well. I don't know. But I'm with you. I don't get the vibe that there's really going to do too much this year. But at least maybe not completely throwing in the towel with the Jose Quintana signing they're showing us. Not completely. I mean, they could have just waited until it was February, right? And this guy's the leftovers that we can pick on a minor league deal and this reclamation project. I mean, they went out and got the guy, knowing that it's this early. Maybe this was a guy that they did really want, and they got him.
Just like Marcano.
Just like Marco, man. All right, now I'm done. All right.
No, it's like, again, just to kind of recap, it's fine. I was a little down on it before, but I think being down on it before just had a lot more to do with just not having Miley. I feel a lot better if we had both Miley and Quintana at this point. Like if we had claimed Miley and then we signed Quintana, I'd be like, okay, maybe like we're actually trying to do something.
Yeah. All right. Fair point. Well, so talk about Quintana. I guess let's get into the top 10 first.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about hitting coach, and then we'll end on a big major signing. So Baseball America did release their new top 10 list for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't know about you, but when I saw it, I was a bit shocked on the names. Not that they weren't good, not that they weren't producing, but how I guess some people have already just shot up to the top 10. For me, the biggest one was Andy Rodriguez. Like Andy Rodriguez, already the number 7 prospect for a Pittsburgh Pirates team that actually is pretty good. So
yeah,
for the people listening, I guess maybe we'll let's list the top 10 prospects that Baseball America released. Number 1, O'Neill Cruz. I don't think we're shocked. Number 2, Henry Davis. Number 3 is Nick Gonzalez. Number 4, Roansy Contreras. 5, Slover Peguero. 6, Quinn Priester. 7, Andy Rodriguez. 8, Michael Burrows. 9, Jared Jones. And then 10, Carmen Majinski. So that rounds it out. So some familiar faces, and I think some very new faces in there.
Yeah. So as far as, I guess we can touch on, O'Neill Cruz, I think is clearly the number one guy at this point. He's just established himself over this last year as someone who crushed the ball at, his first extended look at an upper level. And you put that together with just the raw talent that he has, and that gives you a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, right? That's what O'Neal Cruz is at this point. O'Neal Cruz now is what Ke'Bryan Hayes was going into this past year, right? How Hayes kind of shot up. Like Hayes was always kind of hovering around that 40-50 range, right?
Yeah.
And then after 2020, he shot up into the top 15, right? That's where Cruz is now. Cruz was kind of always hovering in that 40-50 range. After 2021, Cruz is now way up there, with some of the best prospects in baseball. And then, after that, I think you could probably say, they have Henry Davis number 2 and they have Nick Gonzalez number 3. I think those two are probably like interchangeable at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Davis maybe gets the nudge just because he was a number 1 overall pick and he's a catcher, right? Where Gonzalez plays second base. But I mean, I don't think, like, I feel very strongly about both of those guys at some point being like starting major leaguers. Like it's a pretty safe bet right now. Contreras, obviously we saw him do what he did. He was a guy who I guess you could say also shot up, right?
Yeah, he definitely did.
Was not really on the radar at the beginning of last year, but by the time all the midseason prospect reports came out, he was up there, right? I mean, he shot up super quick last year.
Yep.
Same thing with Peguero. Peguero kind of entered top 100 lists in the middle of last year. I am surprised to see Peguero ahead of Priester. Because like Priester is a guy who, I mean, heck, going into last year, people were saying he was the best right-handed prospect in baseball. And I don't really think he did anything last year to make people sour on him. I mean, it wasn't like the greatest minor league season of all time, but he was good.
So let's talk about that, because actually that had probably the most chatter that I saw in this whole top 10 was, how is Quinn Priester not a top 4 prospect? And like you said, like Peguero over him. So let me ask you this, because I think what's unique about Priester, he shot up in a year that no one saw him. Like the hype around him came in a year where there was no actual stats. There was nothing. It was more or less word of mouth. Like everyone's talking about Quinn Priester's camp, right? Which may call it in the COVID season. Yeah. So it's like his ascent came when there was nothing to actually back it up with. You just mentioned how he had a good season last year. It wasn't fantastic, but it was good. So like pretend 2020 never existed. All you had was 2019, and now this season came about, and now there's that list. Like, does that make the ranking maybe seem a little fair? Because it wasn't like he was in a top 10 guy in 2019 per se.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Like if you took out all of, what scouts saw, over that lost season, then yeah, this ranking makes sense. Because you would say, okay, well, we saw what Contreras did in Double-A. We saw what Priester did in High A. Contreras should be ahead of Priester. This makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I get the ranking. Like I understand it. I mean, Priester's still very clearly in the top 100, right? That hasn't changed. He's still, there's still a lot to like about him.
Oh, for sure.
But Peguero jumping over him. I don't really know if that says more about Peguero too. I mean, maybe Baseball America is really high on Peguero. And there's a lot of, I mean, if you look at Fangraphs loves Peguero. Fangraphs has Peguero ahead of Cruz, by the way, which is surprising. At least as of right now. They haven't really updated this since midseason. But yeah, I think people are high on Peguero, especially the power that he has and that he showed.
Right.
And then I think it's just, well, this system's so deep, especially at the top now. Like before, we were talking about how this system's really deep with a lot of guys who could be good, but at the same time, they're probably more like role players. Now the system's deep at the top. Like it's these top 6 guys are all good. Like all these are all projected major league starters with all-star type potential.
Yeah.
All 6 of these guys, which is something to be excited about, because I don't know if we've ever seen that sort of depth in our minor league system. But that's kind of what we're looking at here.
Yep, and that's kind of the point I was getting at. So for one, it might be a little bit of a correction of the ranking. Maybe we shot him up too much last year based off of just scout reports, word of mouth. And so this year it's like, all right, we're going to correct a little bit. But also on top of that, does it really matter if he's air quotes number 4 or number 6? You look at the top 6 and you look at all the guys there, and just like you said, they're all good. So whether he's air quotes number 4 or air quotes number 6, I don't think it really matters. That's a very, very solid 6 guys right there. I don't look at Ronzi, Peguero, or Priester any differently. I'm not saying oh, Quinn Priester's not that good now. I mean, no, he's in a very good club right now of this top 6 Pirates prospect list. So that to me, it speaks more in that sense. It's not as if oh, Priester is dropping, people are down on him. I just think it's really good competition right now to be in that top 6 and where you're ranked at. So, and right, and like Peguero, like you're mentioning, he is very young for the level 2. He's young at what he's producing. I'm very bullish on him. I mean, he's making the Marte trade look much better. I have hopes for Brennan Malone. I have hopes. I know this is a lost season as well for him. That was kind of sour on it, but Peguero looks to be every bit the guy that you're really hoping for in that deal, because the deal at first seemed kind of underwhelming. Yeah. But Peguero is living up to the potential that the deal brought, So that's good.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Cool.
So, top 6 all in good shape right
now. Yep. Yeah. But let's round it out. So the rest of the bottom 4 of the top 10. Yeah. I mean, there's still some production right there.
Yeah, and I think the name that surprised a lot of people was the number 7, Andy Rodriguez. So he shot up, right? Because I don't think Andy was in anybody's top 20.
No,
really.
I think he hovered around the 2025 for the most part.
Yeah. So Andy goes from that 2025 range, and Baseball America now has him number 7. And really, if you look at his year, I mean, it's hard to argue with it. He crushed the ball at Bradenton. I mean, he had 140 weighted runs created plus, 15 home runs. He hit 294, 380 on base percentage, slugged 512. And I brought this up in our group chat. The thing that he also is versatile. He's a versatile catching prospect. He played first, he played left field, but then before this year, he's played a little bit of right field. He's played some center field, right? So he's played kind of all over the diamond. And I mean, I brought up Dalton Varsho as a comparison, right? If he could turn into, and I think there's a lot of value in a player who can catch, but can also play a bunch of other positions and do it competently and hit, right? Because, you're going to need that backup catcher at least once a week, maybe twice a week. But, if you can make it so that your backup catcher also isn't just a black hole and is just useless the other 5 days of the week, I think you've got a pretty valuable player here. And I think that's what Andy Rodriguez can turn into. I think he can turn into a guy where, he catches once or twice a week, but then he also maybe plays a game at first base, and then he plays a game in left field, and then he plays a game in right field. And the next thing you know, he's playing 5 games a week. And, he's basically an everyday major leaguer, but he's also your backup catcher. I think that's what Andy Rodriguez could turn into, especially if he can keep hitting like this. Like if he keeps hitting like this, you have to find a way to play him, right?
Right.
So I think that's what's interesting to me about him is just the versatility plus the ability to hit and catch. And by all accounts, like he's not a bad catcher, right? Like that's something that he can do in the majors. That's intriguing. And I think that, let's say, he hit really well, which is the hitting alone is deserving of the ranking. But just the fact that he can do all that other stuff just makes him so much more valuable.
Right. Yeah. You brought up Varsho, and I joked. I said, well, hopefully better, and it's just because also hopefully better. Like I hope he gets better than that. But Varsho shows that clear value, as you mentioned, and I get what you're getting at. But you are right. Based off last season, right, alone. He's also a guy where, so in that trade, so it was the Musgrove trade, right, where the Pirates ended up getting, oh God, what's his name now? The pitcher from the Pirates, they flipped to the Mets.
Lucchesi.
Yes. They flipped him. They got Andy Rodriguez. So that's what happened. And I know all of us, again, just kind of quote back on this. We were like, why didn't you just keep him? He could have been a good pitcher and you could have flipped him the deadline. But Andy had a little bit of, maybe there's something there, he's very, very young. There's the lost season involved. So we didn't really get to see him and such. And now he comes out this year. And like you said, the bat was there. Bat was super impressive. So now it's like, okay, well, maybe this is a very good offensive player. So that's what I was saying. Maybe, hopefully he can be better than Varsho because maybe and hopefully the bat's going to really be there. But let's go way, way back. And I don't know why, but this just popped in my head today right now as you're talking about him. But also a guy who had value because he could do all that. The bat, like he didn't really have too much offense. So it's kind of like Varsho, although Varsho's offense was okay this year, right? It was about average. But let's go way back in the time machine. Also an ex-Pirate at one point. Brandon Inge.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
He was that catcher, but just so athletic, and like he literally played everywhere. Like we know of like the Jay Hay played everywhere, but Jay Hay couldn't catch, where the Brandon Inges and like the Varsho and maybe Andy Rodriguez, the next guy who like literally can play everywhere and catch. Because what they're even saying here, you listed all the spots, but in Baseball America, they're talking about how, and Pittsburgh thinks he's athletic enough to potentially even handle second base. Like this is the athleticism we're talking about with Andy Rodriguez, where he's going to have a whole, laundry bag of gloves for all the positions for every single game, because it's like, well, I don't know where I'm playing today. So it's kind of cool. Like you said, it's definitely value playing all the different positions, right? That's why like the J.A. had value. He could play everywhere, but the bat came. And if he can play everywhere plus catch, and that's the other thing too, like with this farm, there was absolutely no catching. It was Stallings and nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to tell you that this farm is deep and has a plethora of good quality catching, but there's definitely guys with some potential, and Andy is another one of them. I mean, of course, there's now Davis in there. He's the prized possession. Like, he's the next catcher. But Andy Rodriguez could potentially fill in as a catching role, along with Carter Binns and Gutierrez and such. So, yeah. Like you said, his offense really did it. And he shot to number 7. So good for him.
Yeah. I mean, he crushed it this past year. So nice to see him getting some recognition there. And then to round out the top 10, Michael Burgos, who I guess was Burgos the guy that Tim projected?
Yes, that was his guy.
Yeah, so that was his. He said, "Who's outside the top 20 can be in the top 10?" And Tim Williams said Michael Burgos. So congratulations to Tim. I don't know if he made this list because I know he does some Baseball America stuff. So maybe he just did this to prove himself right. but Michael Burgos.
He just wanted to gloat on this upcoming show he's going to be on.
Yeah,
I told you
we're going to
guys.
get him back on here, and he I told you. Yeah, it's like, well, Tim, you made the rankings. So. But no, Burgos shoots up to number 8, and I feel like Burgos is somebody that we don't really talk about a ton, right? He kind of went under the radar a little bit this year, even though he pitched well, just because he was, he didn't pitch the entire. Had 13 starts, but I think that had a lot to do with, none of these guys pitched last year, so there was probably just some. Let's be a little careful with some of these guys. But I know he was hurt for a little bit. But I mean, he dominated in Greensboro when he was on the mound. Definitely, he was Greensboro's best pitcher. Better than Priester, better than Majinski. Yeah, I mean, if he was kind of there and they were thinking that he could make this jump, he did everything that you wanted to see from him last year to make that jump. Strikeout numbers, huge strikeout numbers. Young, right? He'll be 22 next year. So see what he does in Double-A next year. I think that'll be like his make or break, because he really hasn't thrown a lot of innings. I mean, he's thrown like 100 major league innings for his career. So he's minor league innings for his career in 3 years, really 4 years actually, because 2020 was in there. So I want to see more of Michael Burgos. Let's just say that. I want to see more of him, because right now it's still all like a small sample size.
Yes. So I guess part of me with this, maybe I'm a little surprised on it, just simply for the fact that he probably has reliever built all over him. And I think, I don't know. Even in the write-up here, I think it's most likely he'll be a reliever. He has 2 really good pitches, doesn't really have the third one. They're talking about he's working on it, but not really. Like, he just kind of said, well, forget it. But now in the Arizona Fall League, he's like, all right, well, maybe I'll start working on it.
Yeah.
He's another one. Again, like, he did shoot up, and the numbers put it there, but I don't know if I'm fully bullish on him being a top 10 guy. Andy Rodriguez, he shut up, and I'm like, wow. But at the same time, I kind of get it. This is one I'm kind of maybe a little confused on. But regardless, like, he did have a really good year. And I'll put it this way. It's like, even it's not terrible to be a reliever, right? Like, he has potential of being a starter. They're going to give it to him. But if he could be a reliever, I think he could be one of those lights out relievers. That's what he definitely could provide. So, I don't know. I guess it's really all I have with him. I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah. Speaking of relievers, I mean, then you've got these next couple too, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like, are they starters? Are they relievers? I think a lot of people think that they are starters, so that's why they are on this list. But you got 2 2020 draft picks, Jared Jones and Carmen Majinski. I mean, they gave Jones a pretty solid signing bonus, coming out of high school, and the stuff is awesome. Like, if you watch his highlights from Bradenton this last year, I mean, his stuff, he's got good stuff. And he threw a decent amount of innings, right? Or being his first season in minor league ball, threw 66 innings last year. But he struck out 103 batters in those 66 innings. So he was really
got the
good
stuff.
I think you're looking at somebody who is like at least a reliever, right? And obviously, if you can get starter, if he can be a starter, right, that would be great. But the stuff was awesome. I mean, 14 strikeouts per 9 innings last year, age 19, first season. They're at Bradenton. Again, just a guy who I want to see just kind of keep progressing through the minors and seeing how he does. I think the difference between Jones and Burgos, right, is Jones throws 4 pitches. So he does have those pitches, and they all seem to mostly be like average,
Right.
So I think that's where he can be the starter, whereas maybe you're looking at Burgos more as a reliever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very fair. Burgos clearly had the better performance, right? The better numbers in the season and such, where Jones didn't. Looking at a 2.2 ERA opposed to a 4.64. But like you're saying, look at the stuff or whatever, Jones has a much larger repertoire than Burgos. But yeah, like how those numbers are just eye popping, right? The 66 innings pitched, 103 strikeouts. And you look at it, he had a 30, all equated to a 34% K rate. Like, yikes.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he's got to develop. And if there's, some good development, maybe he can, give you something. He can be a starting pitcher. But like you said, if not, if you put that in the bullpen, like, can it get even better? I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you watch Jared Jones, he has like a really high effort delivery, right? Like he throws the ball like a reliever. You don't see too many starters throw the ball with the effort that he does. So I think that's another reason why you just look at him and you're like, this guy's a reliever, right? Just because of how hard he looks like he's working out there. So maybe that's another thing where, maybe that's just like kind of what he's built to do, is kind of be like maybe a 2 or 3 inning swingman type guy, but a really good one, hopefully. But yeah,
the Pirates have a lot of those, but not really good ones.
But like the delivery is something where, like, if you watch him, you're like, I don't know if this guy can throw 180 innings like this. Like, is it even possible? Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, somebody definitely interested in seeing him move up the ladder. And then that brings us to the number 10, which is Majinski.
Another guy you saw, right?
Another guy I saw. When I saw him, he also kind of, like, I was thinking reliever as well. But maybe that was just the night I saw him. He was just maybe a little off. I only really saw him throw 2 pitches. So that's kind of where I was like, we'll see where this is. But the fastball definitely is good. He's got stuff. He seems to be an advanced arm, right? He was in high A this past year. Hopefully, can kind of progress through the system pretty quickly, and get to Pittsburgh a little bit quicker than some of these other guys. But yeah, another high draft pick. Majinski was somebody who also didn't really throw that much this year. He had some injury issues, so that's another thing to watch. There is, can he stay healthy for a whole year? And if not, then maybe bullpen is his role. I don't know. Yeah. I must have seen Majinski on an off night, because like I wasn't super impressed with him. A lot of people seem high on him though, so I'll take their word for it.
So this is definitely a guy like out of the draft. Jeez, excuse me. Out of the draft, I think both of us were kind of excited about this draft pick. Like what he could bring. Clearly, already he's in the top 10. Comes with some warning issues, right? I mean, just like the last 3 we've talked about. They're not the top 6 guys. These aren't the studs. These aren't the stars. They all have the upside, though. As you mentioned, maybe you didn't see it, but a lot of people are talking about the arsenal he has as well. But some of the things, so the health, and maybe the health was part of it too. Like his knock this year was the fact that like his velocity was all over the place. Is he a high 90s guy? Is he a low 90s guy? Like they're not sure yet. Like he can touch 98, they believe, but then he's like in the low 90s sometimes. So, again, maybe there's more of health. We can build upon that and see what's there this upcoming year. But also a guy, like you mentioned, with the Jones, Majinski, not as high, but 30% K rate. I mean, he was striking out guys. So some intrigue there as well, for sure. But yeah, I'd like this guy coming out of the draft. Well, I should say coming out, but once the Pirates drafted him, looking at him, I like that pick. So reaping some benefits already.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're looking at someone who can, he'll at least be a major leaguer, right? He pitched pretty well. I have to look back, but I thought he pitched pretty well in the fall league too. So, that helps. getting him a little bit of extra work there. They clearly like him. I mean, they moved him to AAA at the end of the year just to kind of get more work. And I think he only played one game there for an Indy, but I mean, I would expect him. He's in Altoona next year, and he's kind of a fast track guy, like the college pitcher. Your college pitchers don't really need a ton of time down there in the minors. They've been polished a lot, already. So yeah, we'll see.
There you go. So that rounds up.
Let
the
me
top
ask you
10.
this. Yeah, let me ask you this. Who are you surprised somebody's left out? Is there anybody who you're surprised isn't in this top 10 list?
Good question. So
I have one person who I'm surprised is not in here.
You're actually making okay. I have to look over some because I wasn't prepared for this. I don't think so. Not really. Who would you be surprised on then?
I'm surprised Miguel Yajure is not in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think we've seen like enough of Miguel Yajure that like you can project him to like you can safely project him to be a starting pitcher in the major leagues at this point. And I mean that alone I think puts him like behind Andy Rodriguez. Like I if I were to look at this list, Yajure would be 8.
Number 8.
Yeah. I would have Yajure ahead of any of those last 3 pitchers.
So I don't know. And maybe maybe the intrigue, the unknown is what set those other 3 because Yajure's been up there. Of course, there was injuries. He had like a successful major league season this year, but maybe just the fact that like we know he's not going to be a top of the rotation guy. He's probably going to be the bottom part.
Yeah, I mean he's not a 1 or 2, but like I mean I feel like he's like a safe bet to be like a number 4 or 5.
Yeah, I agree with that. And really, for the most part, those guys are like that's their role too. If they hit that, if they're not a reliever, that's what they are. So I mean, it's a fair point. I don't know.
That was one name that I would have expected to be on the list. That's all.
Yeah. So not Marcano though.
Not Marcano.
Oh, yeah. Shame. Okay.
Well, maybe if he learns to do more than drag bunt or like slap hit, then
up there. Maybe. All right. Well, that rounds that out. And then I guess really the only other piece of news we have is the Pirates did hire a hitting coach.
Yes.
So Andy Haines, who's been all over the NL Central, is now taking his turn with the Pittsburgh Pirates to complete that. So he comes from the Brewers. Pirates hire Andy Haines. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think you can. I don't know enough about him to really say this guy's good. Mm-hmm. I do like. I mean, if you're the hitting coach for the Brewers the last 3 years, I mean, the Brewers have put together some solid hitting performances. So, if you look at what Luis Urias has done, right, then that's nice to see him going from potential to couldn't hit to could now hit. But then you also look at maybe somebody like Keston Hiura and you're like, what happened there? Why is it that he was awesome and now he's just a pumpkin, as Tyler would say. So
right.
But I mean, it happens, I guess. So in major leagues, it's hard to stick around. So I'm not going to blame any of that really on the hitting coach. So I don't know. And in this day and age, honestly, the role of hitting coach has changed so much. Like your hitting coach isn't really the one who should not really should, but the hitting coach isn't really the one that's making people better hitters, right? Hitters are now expected, hey, if you need help, go find help. They get help over the off season, and then they come to the major league team, and the hitting coach just needs to basically strengthen what they learned during the off season. So hitting coach is a really weird position now, because I don't really know how much teaching goes into hitting coaches nowadays. Like, everybody has their own hitting coach that they deal with, and then you leave them, when the season starts, and then you've got this new hitting coach. And so, like, the job of that new hitting coach is basically just to, hey, what was working for you before? Let's just keep doing that type. I tell you, it's a weird position. I don't really know how it's. I don't really know how it's going to work. We'll see.
Yeah, so like some people are out there pointing, like you're talking about, like the players, like the Brewers, right? And it's like, well, look what he's done to these guys, like, well, look what he's done to Yelich. Yelich comes up and he's killing the ball, and then you want to be like, but then Yelich also was terrible. So it's like, does he get the love for it, or does he get the hate for it? Or does he get anything for it? Like, is he really even any difference maker in that sense?
Yeah.
Now, what's kind of cool is, like, he's been around baseball, for years.
Mm-hmm.
He's only like 40 years old, I think, something like around there. But has like a 20-year like list of coaching and such in baseball. He's been around guys. I mean, he's been around with Chili Davis, So he seems like he's probably has a plethora of knowledge, right? He's still young, so he's got like the old school, maybe the new school mix to him. And on the other side too is like things that he talks about. Think about like what we were talking about with like pitching coaches, what we want to see. I feel a great vibe from that, where he is the guy that's like, I'm not changing your swing. I'm not telling you like you have to do this and do that. And here's our philosophy. It's, guys come to the swing. That's the swing they've made a major league career out of, and I'm here to enhance that. So kind of like with the pitching, right? Here's your strengths, and we're going to build upon that. It's kind of the vibe I guess I see from him. I read into from him. To me, it's I think always with these, these coaches, it's a wait and see kind of game.
Right.
Almost every hire, especially like this, right? Like, you're going to be like, well, you can really hate it or love it, but you're never really going to know until the season starts. I mean, like, look at Oscar Marine. We're very bullish on Oscar Marine. Like, oh my God, look, he comes from the Houston Astros and he believes in all this and this. And like, here we are now, basically 2 seasons later, and we're like, what has Oscar Marine done? So, yeah, I guess that's just kind of wrapping this up. That's where I am with him. Like, okay, this is all cool. I'm reading this stuff, but let's see how it translates.
Yeah, let's see how it translates. And I don't really know how much these people really matter.
Yeah.
Honestly. I don't know. We'll see. I feel like hitting coaches get a lot of blame put on their shoulders when things are going bad. And then when things are going good, no one really talks about him. So hopefully we just don't hear much from him, because if we don't hear much about him, it means they're doing a good job hitting.
Right. But, and the other side too is, like, when you look at this team, he's being dealt a hand with a lot of bad hitters. So, like, don't expect this year coming up where it's like, oh my God, Andy Haines came in. Like, look at this team now. They're just pummeling the ball. Like, they're probably not going to. And then when they still don't also blame Haines for them not performing, because you have to have talent to hit.
It's true. Yeah. At the end of the day, the hitters are the ones that are standing up there.
At the end of the day, if Brian Reynolds has a 98 weighted run created plus, maybe worry a little bit.
Yeah, that happens. Then we have a lot to. Honestly, that's we have a lot more to worry about than the hitting coach if that happens.
That too. But yeah, like if you're seeing if he turns into like the Christian Yelich, right? If he comes over and like Brian Hayes turns into like Christian Yelich now, like, yeah, let's worry. Maybe he was the problem over there, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But all right. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much that. Touch on it a little bit here. Was there anything else that we wanted to bring up before we got out of here?
I don't think so. Have a happy Thanksgiving, you
Yes.
guys. However you guys are celebrating.
Good call. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And we'll see you later. So with that said, bye-bye.
See you guys.